Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The idea of digital transformation has permeated the Army. One of the most important areas of transformation concerns acquisition and logistics. For an update at yesterday's Association of the U.S. Army annual confab, Federal Drive host Tom Temin caught up with the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, Young Bang.
You know, a lot is converging on this ALT domain. You know, there's the digital transformation effort, I think, first and foremost, and just give us the 50,000-foot view of your part, the ALT part in this whole digital transformation.
Yeah, so thanks, Tom. So I always joke that I was brought in to be the T in ALT, right, the technology part. And for us, when we first came in, the Army, as you know, has been undertaking the largest modernization effort in 4 decades. And if you think about everything these days, everything's underpinned by digital transformation. And so when I came into the role, it was awesome because I really fell into the things that I know really well, whether that's software, whether it's digital engineering, whether it's data, whether it's AI, or anything in general. That was just kind of my sweet spot. And so for us, we've been really driving the whole digital transformation landscape. And we've really actually been partnering with all of our community, right? So AFC's a partner in crime for us from an acquisition and requirement standpoint. ATEC is a partner in crime for us from a testing and an acquisition standpoint, as well as, if you think about it, the CIO. So the CIO and us have partnered a lot from a policy perspective because between the two of us, I think we cover the whole landscape of the Army enterprise. And so collectively, it's just like on the commercial side. You have like-minded people that want to drive digital transformation. We're working with the front-end requirements, we're working with our development teams, and we're working with testing, and then we have a policy foot that covers all of that. And I think you've seen a lot of our efforts really help us meet industry where they are in the middle.
And on the news front, you had an announcement yesterday at AUSA on cybersecurity for small business, something other than CMMC, sounds like.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I think the Undersecretary of the Army had a really good announcement about ENCODE. And if you think about that, that's another acronym, and we'll really talk a little bit about that. But the whole purpose of that was the whole CMMC. And if you think about the complexities of CMMC, it's really hard for some of our small businesses really to afford even the level 2 areas of CMMC.
Or even to read a 470-page rule.
That's absolutely true. And so we said, hey, how do we help the industry? How do we help small businesses specifically? How do we really offset the CMMC requirement that's coming down for them? And so we are looking at a series of pilots, what we call Cyber as a Service for Small Business. And really, ENCODE stands for that. The Next Generation Commercial Operations in Defended Enclaves. It's a long title, but it's ENCODE for short. But it really will build on our pilot. Our pilot really is about how do we provide some services for the small businesses, right? So we know that it's a cost-prohibitive model, or it takes a lot of investment for them to do that. And we have some analysis that actually shows most small businesses and how much revenue they get from the Army or Defense. And if you look at the business case, it's really not worth it for them to invest literally maybe $1 million to get CMMC compliance.
Well, beyond that, it also matches the Army matches the way they operate, because anyone starting a business today is not going to buy servers and buy disks and put in software.
Right.
They're going to use accounting, personnel, whatever it is they need, engineering software as a service by subscription anyway. So This kind of conforms the Army to what the reality is for small business.
That's right. And so for the small businesses, like you might say, well, if I was a small business, I could just get as a service from anything, right? And so that's absolutely true. But what we are working with is specifically government overwatch, right? So how do we also offer more, right, for the small businesses? Because there will always be things that are inherently governmental. And should we put that onus on small businesses or other vendors to really provide? No, because they can't, because some of it has to be inherently governmental. And that's why we are partnering with industry and specific small businesses. We're looking at some of the cloud vendors and managed service providers to provide an offering for small businesses that are cost effective as well as a government overwatch component of that. So you'll see more details that will be publicized in the future. And again, this is just, again, building on what the Secretary just announced yesterday.
We're speaking with Young Bang. He is Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, Technology, ATL, and we've talked about cyber. Artificial intelligence is the other big word, and it's real. You know, I don't use the word buzzword for this because you see it happening. And what's your take on the ALT as it relates to AI or vice versa?
Yeah, we think that, so that's a great question. So you're probably like, why does the Army care about AI? And for us, we don't have huge, exquisite, aircraft carriers or huge tankers and fighters, right? Our resources are our people and our soldiers, and we are going to be the biggest consumers of AI, right? And so we don't want to let all the other services figure it out for us. We're going to be leaders in this space. And because, again, like I said, we're going to be the largest consumers. So we have really looked at how do we look at multiple things. So the CIO and ASALT published a guidance on Gen AI. We're actually encouraging our community and our environment to use and experiment with Gen AI. We've also done it to reinforce the security requirements. So if you have data that's on the NIPR, keep it on the NIPR side. If you have data that's on the SIPR, keep it on the SIPR side. And we are now have actually developed pilots of Gen AI and large language models on each of those enclaves for our community to experiment. Because right now, the market is kind of nascent in this space, but we're enabling our users to experiment with it because we want that to inform our requirements so we can actually program in the POM and request to Congress more money as we flesh this out. So that's one dimension from a policy perspective. The other area is that we're looking at how do we accelerate the adoption of AI from the government. And really, we're looking at what are the big obstacles that are preventing us from adopting third-party generated algorithms, right? So we have an effort called #DefendAI. It's a layered defense framework for AI. So we can look at the risk and the controls because, again, we want to be able to adopt third-party generated algorithms. So we're saying, hey, we've identified about 30 different attacks. We've identified about 60 different controls. They're not necessarily one for one, but this is straw man. We want industry to help us define more of that so then we can say, here's the risk, here are the controls, here's some other risk that hasn't or needs to be addressed, and then we can collectively make an informed decision about saying, okay, this can be now put into a closed environment. This can be put into a business environment. This could potentially be put into a weapon system or a safety critical system. So it's a better way of getting at that. So that's the first thing, #DefendAI. The second thing is that we're looking at another buzzword, #BreakAI. And what that means is like, how do we test and do V&V of third-party generated algorithms, right? And so what I'm talking about is not the performance or the drift. We're talking about software we can test because it's deterministic. Algorithms are more probabilistic, right? But as we get closer to AGI, we don't know what the intended behavior or the outcome is going to be. So how do we test for that? And so those, I think, are obstacles that are going to prevent us in the future from adopting it. So that's why we're tackling that now.
It's almost like modeling it out into the future, what it will do as it gets modified by events
Absolutely.
and application of data, in other words.
That's right. And we don't have the solutions, but we do want to push this out